crafty peeps, welcome to my channel, Artfully Creative. I've got another dollar store DIY, and it's using the same box, but this time we're going to make a farmhouse style memory decks. And we're going to do some distressing, and this is a really easy look to achieve. And I'll show you how to also distress the runners so they look like iron, and I sanded them down a little bit. So I'll show you some close-ups. Let's get started.
So I'm using milk paint, and it's from Folk Art. Here's also a brush from Folk Art. I'm trying to get it to focus. There we go. It's the Donna Dewberry Scuffy brush. And this milk paint is the color, I don't know why I'm showing you those other two. I wasn't deciding on a color for the runners. I'm a little bit off camera, but I'm using a Sharpie marker to mark the halfway point so that I can create a plank look for this Farmhouse Memorydex dupe. So what I should have done was use the pencil, but I was afraid you guys wouldn't be able to see it, so I did use a Sharpie marker, but that bled when I went over it with the gesso and paint combination. So if I were to do this over, I would definitely use a waterproof marker or just the pencil to create a light line. You can see there that will create almost a plank-like look that has the farmhouse style. And then we're going to use the chalk paint, the Plymouth Rock color, which is kind of a deep iron. It's not that brown on the top of the lid, so it's more like a deep iron color. I would say more gray. So it's a really deep gray. So now that we have the halfway point, I just wanted to mark that so that I knew that that was the midway point, and then it would look even, like it was an evenly built full-size box. So if you don't want to draw this middle line, that's no problem. You can simply distress with the chalk paint. And we're going to get into that in just a second as soon as I finish with the Sharpie marker. Then we're going to take the Scuffy brush and dip it into this milk paint. I keep saying chalk paint, but milk paint works in a similar fashion to the chalk paint. It's just a little thinner and dries really fast. So I like the way that this gives a rustic finish. And I've grabbed a plate here. I opened that chalk paint, and then I realized, well, I need to do another coat of the white craft paint and the gesso. So to make your own chalk paint, you can do 1 part paint to 1 part gesso. And I've finished quite a few pieces of furniture, so I'm just going to pour out. I'm going to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be exact. I mean, you can measure if you want, but I'm just going to pour out a portion of paint and then a portion of gesso and mix them together with my paintbrush here, and it looks about even, so that it's a 1-to-1 ratio of paint to gesso. So I'm creating my own white chalk paint simply because I didn't have any white chalk paint on hand. So I do have the other colors. So this is a simple way if you guys don't have any, or if you already have gesso, you can create your own here. So I'm going to quickly brush this on with a simple flat brush. Here I'm speeding it up quite a bit so you don't have to watch the paint. And so I'm doing the inside first. I like to start with the inside and then work my way through the top of the wooden crate, because you'll get a lip of the paint that goes at the top here. So I'm going to finish all of the insides, and I am going to distress the inside with a farmhouse look as well, even though it's harder to see. I still think it looks really cool. So now I'm going to break out the chalk paint here, and I'm just dabbing it off. You guys have heard of the dry brush technique, so you can see that I'm just randomly hitting different spots and then dipping some of the paint off with a paper towel. And so that went really fast, like I think it was sped up too much, but once you dab on that chalk paint, or milk paint, sorry, then you're going to just smear it around, and the fact that it's thin, it works really nicely. So here I'm going to the outside now and working on the outside while the inside dries. And you can kind of see the farmhouse look on the inside. So I'm taking that same brush that's really dry because I've left it sitting there. And I like the fact that it gives like a rustic, almost wood look. So here you can see I'm going over the Sharpie marker with the white paint and gesso mixture. And we're going to see how this turns out here. So now I'm taking that milk paint in the Plymouth Rock color and kind of smearing along that middle line just so that it gets a more shiplap look. You can take a baby wipe and wipe it off if you don't like how that looks and start again. So that's super simple. I kind of wanted to go with a little less distressed look, so I did put the chalk paint on and then go over it a little bit with what was on the brush. I didn't add a lot of the homemade chalk paint, the white. I didn't add a lot of the white. I just used what was on the brush. So you can see how that side looks and how the inside looks. I'm liking how this is going so far. And of course you can add more. If you like a more distressed look, you can add more of the milk paint. And I didn't let this dry too much in between. You see I've brushed that on, and now I'm going to add some of the milk paint over to distress it. So you can just add a little bit and then go along that center line there. And then I'm going to take the white paintbrush, like I said, and go over that and try to smudge it out. There we go. I'm going back with some, you can see I went off camera and dabbed some extra paint there, some extra white chalk paint to go over that midline there to soften that. And then I'm once again taking that milk paint and going along that dividing line to create the plank look. So we're going to do this on all of the sides, and I like how going over that Sharpie marker, or if you could find an India ink or a waterproof black marker, that would work, or just a pencil. Now a pencil is not going to show up, but at least you would have that dividing line where you know. So I'm going over this last side. This is the fourth side, so go over it with the chalk paint, the homemade chalk paint that you made, the white one. And I make sure I'm going to go along the bottom only so that I can get the lip of that paint that got from the edge of that fourth side. See how it gives that extra blob off the side, and you always have to go back and wipe that off. So I'm just going over that. If you see that it's too dark for your liking, you can just wait a little bit and go over that with your white paint again, like I said. So here what's dried on the brush is kind of perfect. I like that less intense look. So I'm going to go over that with what's on the brush, the white brush. So here, oops, I thought that was the last side, but this is really the last side. So I'm going over the whole thing once again with the white paint, white homemade chalk paint. I'm just trying to show you how that's looking so far. So once it dries, it'll look a little bit different. And I'd like to hear what you guys think of this farmhouse style. If you guys like the farmhouse style or the modern style better. So I have a lot of ideas of ways we could use these boxes. If you guys want to stay tuned for my next videos, I'll be showing you what we can put in these boxes. So here I'm just distressing the bottom. I know we're not going to see the bottom when it's laying on the table, but I still want to give it that farmhouse look. So if anybody picks it up and looks at the bottom, they'll see it still has some of that chalk paint on the bottom, or the milk paint distressing look. And I like how the Plymouth Rock color, because it's a warm, like a warm, really dark gray, I like how that looks. It's not a cool gray, so I think it gives a nice warm look to this Farmhouse dupe here. So I'm turning that all around and seeing if I want to add some more. So here I did decide I wanted to add some more of that milk paint to that dividing line there, and just going over and smearing it with what's on the brush. Then I'm going to go back and add some more chalk paint, or some milk paint. Sorry, I'm going to keep calling it chalk paint. I've never used milk paint before, so that's why I keep calling it chalk paint. But I'm kind of like how this is looking, and of course once it dries it'll be a less like big contrast. Like there's a big contrast right now, but once it dries, the chalk paint dries quite a bit lighter. So, and the milk paint also dries lighter. So there we go. I'm just using that brush and kind of smearing along that line. I think I like that side the best. It does create a wood look when you use the dry brush technique there. So I'm going over that with the white paint, going over any areas that I think are too dark. Let me know if you guys are starting any projects or if you try this. Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to see what you think. And next I'm going to close this up, and next we're going to do the runners that hold the Memorydex cards. So just giving you one final look at how that looks. And here we go for the runners. Okay, so now I have my bare wood runners, and we're using the Folk Art milk paint. This color is Plymouth Rock. And it says this is for painting directly over unfinished wood or pre-finished. So we're just simply going to put one coat of this chalk paint, or milk paint, over the bare wood runner. And then we can sand it. So here are the milk paint has dried on these runners. We're going to take our fine grit sandpaper. I'm using a Tim Holtz sanding device, and I'm just going to sand the top two square edges of the runners because you won't be able to see the bottom two sides. Those will be glued down into the box. So this is really easy. The thing I love about the milk paint is that it's really easy to distress, and there you see how the finished runners look. Thanks so much for joining me, and here's the finished product.